All right, we got a good crowd for the VIP session. I'm super excited to have everyone. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedule. I know it can be hectic and complicated, and like I said, I appreciate it full-heartedly. Our whole family appreciates it. And as you guys seen, we try to make it a family event. Let's do a little background story here. I talk to, every year I always kick and scream, and I always tell my wife, this is the last year I'm doing a conference. And all my buddies laugh, and they're like, yeah, he says that every year. So this year was it. I'm like, after last year, I said, I'm done. I don't need to do this. I just don't need to do it. We just don't need to do it anymore. And everyone wanted us to turn it over to, more professional groups and corporate groups to run it and put it on and take the stress off our family. And that's not, that's really not how I do it. So we decided to make it another family affair or family event. And I said this time around, no, I wanted to take my name off of it from the Van Trump conference, and I wanted to make it something bigger, something more important. So we went out there, we bought the name FarmCon, kind of put a younger twist to it, try and focus on gaining more perspective and honestly trying to help figure out a way to revive rural America. Myself, Soren, Andy, folks, board guys at Conestoga, Greg back at CGB, some other folks, we'd kicked around and talked a little bit and just, it's sad. I travel around to all these small rural towns that we all grew up in and loved, and, things are pretty bleak in a lot of them. And a lot of people are trying to figure out how do we revive rural America? How can we get jobs back? How can we save the farmer? And that conversation is, man, it's overwhelming to think about. And then how do you get execution off of it? So I decided, hey, we'll come back and we'll do a conference, and I'll try and get some founding partners on board that want to try and run with that flag as well and raise that flag and try and make some type of difference, or at least provide some tools in an environment where we can all gather and get together and maybe come up with something that, like I said, makes a difference in the world, at least in our rural world of agriculture. So I appreciate all the founding partners and the folks that jumped on to try and help us. We'll hear more about them, and they'll be on some of the panels and things as we move forward. But my other vision was, and this is where it got might be a little bit of a twist for folks. A few of my friends are like, now what exactly? And I said, when I go out and talk and we hear everyone tell the farmer, you're going to have to pivot, you're going to have to do things different, you're going to have to change. Well, for a lot of my friends and a lot of the folks that I know, that's extremely, extremely difficult. When you've done the same thing for 4 generations and you've traveled the same roads and you've worked the same fence lines and you've done everything the same way, change isn't easy. You can think about it, you can strategize it, you can write it down, but execution and having the tools to make those changes is crazily difficult. And I've been blessed. When I've got out of, I worked for the NFL for a couple of years, did camps and combines. Michelle got the job in Chicago, and I started to meet other traders and investors and really other CEOs of other businesses outside of anything to do with agriculture, rural America. I gained some more acumen and tools that I started to recognize as I've gotten older. I use those tools to invest in other businesses or companies or keep myself out of other bad investments. And a lot of the folks that I talk to in rural America haven't had that opportunity. So they haven't had the opportunity to see anything really way diverse or much outside of their own realm. So I thought we would do FarmCon. I made it our goal this year at our company, Jordan and I and the other people, I wanted to go to conferences that had nothing to do with agriculture. I wanted to get back to that for a minute. And I just am like, man, I got to have a different view of the field. I got to be able to see things different. Rather, it's like an NFL team. Sometimes you got a guy in the press box. Sometimes you got a guy down there. You want different angles and a view of the field. So Jordan and I went to one conference out west. You guys will get a kick. My wife says, what in the heck are you doing? There were people on stage that were talking that had made millions of dollars blow drying hair. There were people on stage that had made millions as social influencers, social media influencers. They were talking about all kinds of things that I had never thought of, but I could always sit in the stands or sit in the stage and relate it back to agriculture or back to my own business. And I just think a lot of times folks in our space don't get that opportunity. So that's where I wanted to put a different twist on it. I wanted to bring something new, different to the table. See if you guys find it helpful. See if you folks find it interesting. See if you find it maybe as something that helps you execute and pivot and maybe change a little bit. As I move forward, we started talking about our brand, AgSwag, that brought us to kind of try and think differently. Jordan's going to be giving away a bunch of hats out front. One of the people that I met, my good friend Rock always tells me, the whole importance of all this is to network and meet people. And he's absolutely right. We went to the conference. I didn't want to go to the conference out west. I just made myself buy these tickets, and I made myself go. And I met these people with the vending, and we started talking on the side. He said, yeah, I got one customer that's, man, just kind of blown it up. And I said, really? And he says, yeah, it's called Farmer's Fridge. I don't know if you guys have seen them in Chicago and some of the other places. Each one of those vending units is popping in about $1 million a clip. They now have 40-some vending units. They're sourcing the food direct from the farmer, putting it in these mason jars, selling it as a healthy salad in places. You guys will hear Travis later tomorrow. And Travis has talked numerous times to me about vending machines that farmers will own where they put their products and fresh produce into some of those. So we've partnered with them. That came from that event out there. The designer was the guy that designed the big, huge boxes that Snapchat did those glasses in. So he wasn't even focused in the ag space, so to speak. But I know lots of folks in this room that may find it interesting as we talk more about it, sourcing products, sourcing things through those types of interactive units. The CBD space and the hemp space and the marijuana space is really pushing them hard because they want to bring those units into the dispensaries and use them as a kiosk type machine rather than having employees steal things. So as you can imagine, I think we have to start thinking differently about how we can play those things moving forward. I know Jordan's given hats away through it. We just wanted to try it to see how it would work. They'll talk later in the show about Boeing uses it and using those machines to cut back on loss prevention, putting the safety glasses in there and all that. They did a scan of the parking lot and found hundreds and hundreds of safety glasses in people's cars. Like people had 10 safety glasses. And this way they could make you go to the vending, put in your code. Next thing you're cutting back on how many times the boss is like, seriously? 30 times this month you get a new safety glasses? But I'm telling you, there's other ways that we can see things rolling out and moving forward. So I just talking off cuff on the perspective side of things. I'll switch over and talk a little bit about some thought leadership stuff that we were privy to at a few different events this past year. And I just like to update everyone on, what kind of made me stop and rethink things and make changes. One of them obviously has to do with our thoughts from a subconscious level. And Andy will tell you, and some of the other trader friends of mine, most of the best traders we'd ever came across or came in touch with were good at making decisions from the heart. They were good making decisions on a subconscious level, more from the heart than the head. So I just dropped my daughter off to go to Italy, 6 months, finishing up her architect degree. I said, make all your decisions from the heart, not the head. I don't want you, if you feel it, don't get in the car with someone. If you feel it, don't do it. I believe, and I've watched other people in the investment world and in other space, I believe God wires us to have that ability. I've seen some of the greatest business leaders. Too often we get out of touch with that. There's story after story of the people that survived the Holocaust. I did a deep dive this year on it. Almost all the survivors that made it through the early parts said the same thing. They would tell each other, trust your heart. Don't go in that room if you don't feel it, or don't go there if you don't think. You get though where you feel uncomfortable. You don't want to be rude to someone. You don't want to make a decision, so you start to reference your head, and things get really, really squirrely. So along that deep dive, I listened to a profound speaker out west. They talked about messing up your partner's subconscious. And I thought back to all the time. Michelle and I have been married 30 years and high school sweethearts. Yes, there were a few times I may have fibbed a little bit on where I was. And I'll just toss it out there. And Michelle and I had always talked and laughed, but as I think back and reflect on it, the speaker talked about it for 2 hours. And they said, one of the worst types of mental type abuse you can do is if, say my wife thinks I'm cheating on her, I adamantly deny it. She has a sixth sense from the heart that she knows it. You don't want to screw up your partner's Geiger counter. I'm telling you. I've thought about it numerous times, and in business and in our partnerships. When you start to make those people second guess that subconscious decision, you start to jack up a lot of their decision-making abilities. And if they're your partner and really are your partner, you need them. And you need those people on your team. So think about that as you move through business. I've thought about it a lot, you just got to, it's just be honest, be upfront, try and think about the little bit further down the line what you could be doing to some of the subconscious decision-making. And I encourage everyone to trust your heart more, I think. I think we have to. They asked me this question a couple different places. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And there was not a single farmer in the room, right? I'm out there with all these people. I don't even know. They're on a different planet, it felt like. They're all like, you must be from the Midwest. You're a farmer, right? That's what they would say to us. And I said, yeah, okay, we're from the Midwest. And my question is, as I reflected back, though, what would all my farming buddies do if they knew they couldn't fail? I guarantee everyone in this room knows the answer on what they need to do to their farm or how they need to pivot and how they need to change. But all of a sudden we take that and we go to here, now it gets complicated. Moving's complicated, logistics are complicated, finances are complicated, everything starts to get complicated, and we start to make decisions from here. And that's when all my trades have gone bad. Generally, that's when my trades start to go bad or my investments start to get squirrely. Because I start to justify. I knew the right answer, and I knew it 100 times, and I just failed to execute and failed to do it. So I would say, as we move into these uncharted waters, I'd trust your gut, I'd trust your intuition. You probably know the right answer. It's probably right there. It's just we convolute it a little bit with our own movements. I'll kind of shift gears, talk everyone every time I go out, ask about being a stock market bull. I'm still bullish. We've had a good run. I just listened to the Trump talk. He let us know 141 new all-time highs during his presidency. I suspect if he wins again, I think the stock market keep on running. I think this thing could continue to move well beyond our expectations. The demographics are set up right. The millennials are the biggest generation history of the United States, bigger than the boomers ever were. My generation was a little bit too small from a demographic capacity to carry when the boomers peeled off. And I think the demographics, these kids are just coming into money, and they're just coming into their own. They're late to get married. They're late to do a lot of things. But that's what fuels the economy. And that's what's going to probably continue to push things higher. The question is, which stocks are going to go higher? So you kind of ask yourself, who's taking money out of the stock market and who's putting it in? People taking it out of the stock market, baby boomers. Looking forward, GM, GE stock, look how they're struggling. Look how they struggle to pivot. Look how they're struggling to find new direction. What stocks have been hot popping? Tesla, Chipotle. We made a big push into Goldman midway through the year at about June when we knew that Apple Card was going to come out and Goldman was going to back it. So, we've started looking at demographic changes and shifts being our most important, that's our most important tool out of the get-go when we're picking a stock or an investment. So, and then from there, we'll get into more specifics. But I think you have to be right demographically on money flow early. And that's, that's, like I said, that's where we've been. I think we're going to continue to stay bullish for quite a while. Obviously, there's talk if the Democrats were to win or Biden, Wall Street seems a little calmer right now because they believe it's either Trump, Biden victory. And they're somewhat okay. It seems to be, if a little bit more on the perimeter, you go Warren or obviously Sanders, it's going to get market's going to get very nervous. So we're going to stay bullish. We're probably due for a little setback. Historical data says, when we make that correction like we made last December, you go about 221, 240 days. We're into 300 and some days, so we might see a little setback, a little correction. We'll talk about those tomorrow when our panel comes up. I like this. We were at a conference. Keeping money is much harder than making money. It says the more successful you are at something, the more convinced you become that you're doing it right. The more convinced you are that you're doing it right, the less open you are to change. The less open you are to change, the more likely you are to trip in a world that changes constantly. I reflect back on my friends from small rural towns that still, run and own and operate their family business and their parents' business. And, they are super smart people. They've lived on those farms. They know it better than anyone. Know those roads. Know all of that better than anyone. But I hope we can encourage and get more people to come out and try and just look at different things and see different perspectives. And I know almost everyone in this room does a great job of that. So, like I said, I think this is important. You have to have some logic involved and some rules in place and some strategy. Big question. I spoke 2 times yesterday over at the independent seed dealers. This question came up. What about marijuana stock? What's my take? What's my play? I think you have to break it down and ask yourself if you want to be upstream, midstream, or downstream. I'm hesitant upstream. Upstream's canopy. That's your growers. That's the growing side of it. The reason I'm hesitant upstream, you got to kind of play it out a little bit. As it becomes more and more growers get in, you get a more commoditized type of market. It's probably going to drive margins lower, put a squeeze on the back end for certain. I ask myself, what if we fully legalize it nationally, marijuana? Then how do I feel? I probably even feel more bearish about upstream. Because I suspect we'll be able to start importing from Colombia, South America. Some of those other players will start importing. Then we'll even get more stiff competition. So I'm hesitant. So I know a lot of guys in the room might be chomping to get out there and make a play. I'd probably say stay more, midstream's where your private equity guys are going to probably play. They're probably going to try and roll some things up, sell some things. There's probably some money to be made there. We have some investment in Kush bottling. So Kush bottling just really does the bottling and the packaging for a lot of the facilities. So, it's like the oil story. Don't maybe invest in people that are looking to strike oil. Invest in the people that are making the barrels for oil. So kind of a similar feel if you're in that midstream space. And then you get downstream more, you're talking more your retailers. I would focus, and what we're focused on is companies that are going to have heavy retail footprints in touristy type places. Maybe Florida, New York, California. We think the kids probably there, Facebook, Instagramming, taking pics, more foot traffic. So you're probably going to get some more downstream opportunities to create premium. And I think that's going to be super important. So I'm a little hesitant upstream, and we'll get into more of those questions, I'm certain, as the conference goes on, but I'm just kind of tossing out some things to kick around and talk about. We always get the questions about jobs, and I think it's interesting. We churn about 21 million jobs a year, but create about 24 million. It's been mostly the consensus for a good period of time. We think that probably stays in play. I think the job market looks good. It's just a question of now will it start to squeeze the back end corporate margins. As we have to a tighter labor market, you may have to pay people a little more to keep them, or give them some raises, and that may squeeze some of the back end margins. So we're keeping a close eye on it. We've learned, and what really has been a focal point for our investments is talking with CEOs, and I'm breaking down their strategy more of what they see and how they're building their company and what their culture is. And we found the best of the best are really dead on their culture from top to bottom. And the best of the best, they like to build small teams that move really fast. And they reverse flow the intel. So rather than the intel coming from the home base out, they're like more Navy SEAL type, where it comes small group, provides the intel back to the home base, and they create those small working teams. The problem in the past for a few of my businesses, even in the businesses we invested in, we would hire for a position. Let's say I needed an accountant. So you get the best of, best resumes in, the best of breed, and you hire that person. I've learned that's not a good move. You should probably first make sure it's a cultural fit from top to bottom. And you may have to hire the 5th most qualified accountant. But if they're a cultural fit, when you plug them into the small team, they move fast. If you plug in that person that isn't a cultural fit into a small team, well, nothing happens. You got nothing but conflict, controversy, and problems. So just think about that as you start to break people up into groups, a lot of CEOs in the room, a lot of business leaders. What we found is when we look at a company and we see them making that play and that CEO explains that to us on a call, I'm pretty well behind him. I mean, I like that play. It's what carried us. Our biggest position was Tesla from June forward. And I mean, I can go into numerous details on why. Talk Ron Barron's theory and other people's theories, but I mean, there's a lot of cultural insight, the short amount of flow. We can go on and on. We'll get into it again tomorrow when we get into ethanol versus electric and things of that nature. But, I really think you have to think about, let's go, I'll just get to this next slide. The problem is culture changes without notice. You don't notice it. You grow older, your interests change, your likes change, your dislikes change, and the next thing you're the leader and you're over here, but the rest of your team's over here. So be careful, when you came from here, the next thing, now you're at a country club and you're drinking wine and you're doing this, that, and the other. I'm not sure your culture's right all the way through the organization. Be careful there. I'm telling you, that creates a disconnect, that creates a dislocation, and that's where stumbling really takes place. Like Horowitz says, he really is apprehensive in making investments into companies that don't fully, truly understand those dynamics moving through and through. And here's how you got to think about this. We've talked about this before, but Facebook. You go to Facebook, you pull in, it says one Facebook way. They view themselves more as pirates. When they see people walk in, they immediately start judging culturally if they're going to be a good fit. Meaning this, when we've talked and I was lucky to be in a conference that Sheryl Sandberg was at and talking, and if someone's really finely dressed and really detailed, they're hesitant. They say you probably ought to go down to Apple down the street. And I'll tell you why. Here's their theory. Their theory is they want to tell a small group, take that hill over there, do it however you want to do it, make it happen as fast as you can. But here's the most important part. We might pull the plug on you at any time along that journey, and you can't get your head down, get your dauber down. You can't feel rejected. If you spend a year of time, we're going to pull it, and we're done with it. They exit quickly. So when they're talking culture, they're looking for people that can change fast. They don't know what job they're going to be in 3 years from now. So on your farms or in our ag space, a lot of times I feel like we get handcuffed down. We hire someone, they're just tunnel visioned up. Boom, we pivot, they blow up. That's a problem. I mean, think of all the hours and time we spent up front training them. I think you got to tell them. We want people that are going to be quick and easy to adapt, and it's fluid. I mean, the situation's fluid in ag right now, for sure. And you have to be able to move quickly. So you got to assemble those teams right. You got to have your culture right. Like I said, Apple, on the other hand, they like to take products from start to finish, test into market, and then pull them. So they're looking for people that take a ball from here all the way across the finish line. Look, got finely dressed, very detail-oriented, different culture. different environment. We see the same as you look through. Look at all the best companies. Look at Patagonia. They know their culture like no other. When they call and we talk to them about their swag and their ordering, they know exactly what cotton we want. They know what feel they want. They know what look they want. They hire kids first 2 nights are on the beach doing a bonfire and surfing, and that's the kids they want. Those are the people they want. Goldman's brought in their new CEO that's part-time DJ. They're changing everything up. They're really pushing and hiring in a different direction. You talk all the greatest teams. I mean, teams win championships. It's teams that win championships. And it's the culture that started within that team that really allows you to move. And it's important when you're looking at a business, look at their culture. Look at it from top to bottom, and then what it feels like to the consumer. And if it's off somewhere in there, be hesitant, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to move fast. I like this just because when we talked a lot about culture at these different events, the reason so many efforts to establish corporate culture are basically worthless is that everyone emphasizes beliefs instead of actions. And that's really true. Most CEOs come in, oh yeah, we got these awesome beliefs. That's not culture. Hell, anybody can do that. You got to walk it. I mean, you have to be immersed. It has to be, like I said, it has to be across the board, and it's hard for sure. Another one I thought you'd like to pass along or show the kids. There's a huge difference now that my kids have gotten older and they're trying to take on more leadership roles. I constantly tell Jordan, there's a huge difference between leadership and management. Leadership's the art of getting people to follow you and getting people to do things by helping and inspiring others. Management is simply getting people to do what you know and what you want. And there's a big, massive difference. And I know some great leaders in this room, and I've often told my wife I could improve vastly on being a better leader. A lot of times it's just my way, the highway. If they don't get it done, boom, I blow up, they quit, and we're hiring someone new. That is not good. So, and I know it's something you got to work on. It's a tough uphill battle. So, I know where everyone's at on that. And I thought it was interesting because there's study after study done. If you look at that, you can look it up on the internet, that Marshmallow challenge. They bring in a group of kindergartners, and they've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. They give them 1 yard of tape, a yard of string, 20 pieces of uncooked spaghetti, and 1 marshmallow. And they put them against a team of NBA guys. Kindergartners win every time. To build the marshmallow as high as you can get it, the marshmallow has to end up on top. They said every time in every video they watch, the group of NBA people sit there and they already know they're kind of jockeying around each other, and they don't want to upset this person, and this person's got his view, and this. Kindergartners stood there like this, just super close to each other, were touching one another, never really said much, and just dove in and started putting stuff together and just going fast. Boom, kindergartners win every time. If you look it up, it's a funny study when you're talking about culture. So in your own organizations, you get that culture slightly wrong, boom. You're going to have that NBA group that's sitting there and looking to this one person the whole time. Am I doing it right? Is Dad going to get mad? Am I doing this right? I think you got to go with the other approach on it. And I think it allows you to make some things happen. This here is big for us. If you're a leader of a business, and most of the folks here are, you have to seek out and find where your disconnect is. And we found it when we started, after we started AgSwag, I cannot tell you how quickly we can see the disconnects in organizations. Let's say we talk to the CEO, we talk to the president, we talk to whoever's the highest up. We talk to them about culture, how we can help them lower customer acquisition costs or improve customer retention rates or this, that, and the other. They got it. I mean, they got it. They're like, man, I love it. That's awesome. And here's what happens. Play this back in your own business. They say, hey, awesome. Go over there and talk to our person that handles that division. I'm telling you, I've referenced back many times, that's like Henry Ford going out with the first pickup trucks, flatbeds, and saying, hey, I got this awesome new truck, and we think we can speed up your deliveries like no other The CEO's on board, and he says, hey, awesome. Go talk to my guy that's head of deliveries. He's out in the horse barn. He doesn't know any different. The guy in the horse barn is like, nah. You go out there with a truck and talk about tires and gas and fuel to a guy that's out shoeing horses and moving hay, he don't want to have anything to do with it. So I'm telling you, as this leader, you got to figure out if you're getting disconnects when you delegate or you push things in different directions. And I promise you, you are. And you have to find that out and hopefully portray that vision to your whole team. And when we see that playing out, we see those businesses move so fast. I don't care if it's a small mom and pop operations to big businesses. I'm talking they move fast and they gain market share and they make some things happen. So I think it's just critically important that we locate that. This is big for us. I know it's big for everyone out here. How are you working to build brand ambassadors for your businesses and your farm operations, where you're selling to, who you're buying from, things of that nature? We've learned through data that everybody, most CEOs, here they come in. Here's the deal. I can tell you a couple of Sprint CEOs I've known personally. Look at Sprint. Always come in, did a great bang-up job, customer acquisition, right? Could get new clients. Had a hard time keeping them out the back door as fast as they come in. Most new CEOs come in and focus on new customers. But the facts of the matter are it's 5 times to 25 times harder or more expensive to get new. 60 to 70% of your current customers want to stay if you could figure out what you could do to keep them. And then about 80% of your future profits are going to come from 20% of your current customer base. So you have to figure out a way to make those people more happy. We talked about this a little bit last year. Most CEOs, when we've done part of these group studies with CEOs and trying to make good investments, we poll the CEO. The CEO then comes back and we say, hey, here's your surveys from customers. I'm telling you, 8 out of 10 CEOs, good CEOs, you want to know where they focus on? The most dissatisfied customers. And I don't like to partake in those type of investments behind that CEO. We like to, I said the goal is to create brand ambassadors. A brand ambassador is someone you could probably say is an 8, 9, or a 10. I mean, they love you, and they'll tell their friends and family about it. I don't know if they're going to necessarily do a lot of selling for you, but they like what you do. We see, and we've seen countless data. If you focus on those 1, 2, 3s, 4s, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to move them. You're probably not moving them much. Sometimes you're just not a good fit. Move on. Don't focus on those people. Read what they say. Understand if you really dropped the ball somewhere. But you got to focus on the 5, 6, and 7s. You got to convert the person that's on the fence a little bit. You got to make them brand ambassadors to whatever it is you're doing. And when you folks pivot and start to try and go direct to end users, same game's going to apply. And you've got to get good at business, and you got to get good at business tools and business acumen, which a lot of folks just haven't had that opportunity, like I said. And so think about things as you move forward and you try to diversify a little bit and weather the storm. There's all kinds of great leaders in this room. If you talk to business, I think you would really hear some enlightening things. This one hit me so hard this year. The guy that owns Shake Shack went to deal, and the guy that Fertitta, Tillman Fertitta, you remember that $1 million buyer guy or whatever? He owns the Houston Rockets, and he owns all of those restaurants. He owns 600-700 restaurants. 2 different conferences. They both said the exact same thing. They're like, we can't believe how many people in this world start a business and focus on service. They said, service? Hell, everybody's got to provide service. It's about providing hospitality. And they both hammer it home, and that's a big difference of terms. Can you provide hospitality? That's why we like to say we can provide hospitality at this event. If I turn this event over to someone, company, might just provide service. I don't know. I mean, my wife, my kids, my mother-in-law, my sister, they have skin in the game. All of your family farms, you guys can win this. I'm telling you, you guys can win this ag space and this going direct and producing and going direct to the buyers, you guys can win it because you can provide hospitality. And there's one cool part that they both said. It's only one thing in business that's free, no matter what. And that is smile, being happy. Everyone can do it. Everybody on your team can provide hospitality, and it doesn't cost a damn thing. It's the only thing in business that you'll ever get that's free. So push your people to provide hospitality, good hospitality, and I think you guys will see some things change along your business line. So